Where's my signal? See where the waiting for a signal here. Somewhere. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Scott Fielding, the Minister of Finance, and I'll be your MC. So I want to thank you for joining us here today. I know there's a number of MLAs that have joined us as well, so obviously an important day for everyone, so I do want to recognize everyone in the crowd. I'd also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, and Manitoba, the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, Dene, and homeland of the Métis. I'd like to welcome the speakers for today's announcement. Premier Heather Stefanson is here, of course. Alex Forrest, President of the Manitoba Firefighters Association. With that, I'd like to call upon for our first speaker, Premier Stefanson.
Thank you very much, Minister Fielding, and thank you for being the person who actually introduced Bill 6 today, the Workers' Compensation Amendment Act, earlier today. That is really why we're all here today, so thank you for playing a very important part in this, Minister. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here today, and particularly a special thank you to all of these incredibly wonderful frontline workers for being here. This means a lot to me personally, to our government, to my colleagues who are here with us. Thank you so much for everything that you guys do. As many of you know, I have been a long advocate for firefighters who put themselves at risk for the benefit and protection of communities across the province. And our throne speech committed to increased support to firefighters who contract cancer on the job. We know that firefighters are at heightened risk of contracting various cancers due to the nature of their work and the inevitable exposure to carcinogens on the job, despite all the efforts to prevent and mitigate exposure risks. Manitoba was an early adopter of presumptive legislation for cancers affecting firefighters when the Workers' Compensation Act was amended in 2002 to add 14 presumptive cancers for firefighters with unanimous support of the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. A presumptive cancer under the Workers' Compensation Act means that when tragedy strikes and firefighters seek workers' compensation, that the cancer is presumed to be an occupational disease unless the contrary is proven. Since 2002, Manitobans have come together across party lines to expand the list of presumptive cancers and extend presumptive legislation to volunteer or part-time firefighters and at-risk fire commissioner personnel as well. It's my pleasure today to announce that earlier today, our government introduced new legislation that will enhance supports and benefits to firefighters under Manitoba's Workers' Compensation Act by expanding Manitoba's list of presumptive cancers to include primary site, ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, thyroid cancer, pancreatic cancer, and penile cancer. By adding these cancers, we will ensure that adequate protections are in place both for our male and female firefighters and at-risk fire commissioner personnel, and that Manitoba addresses the broadest array of presumptive cancers in the world. Once again, I just want to thank you all for joining us here today. And I really just want to thank a special thank you to all of you who are here with us today for your dedication and commitment to the people of Manitoba. It's sincerely an honor for me to be here with you. And just so that you know, we are here to support all of you as well. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you, Premier, and I think we can all agree today's announcement is really an important step in recognizing firefighters, your service to the community that you do every day, your professionalism and your courage is second to none. I'd also like to now introduce Alex Forrest. Everyone knows Alex here. Alex, for the work that you do here, come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Minister. Premier Stephenson, thank you. This is an incredible day for firefighters in Manitoba, incredible day for firefighters in Canada, and incredible day for firefighters across the world. And to add to that, it's also an incredible day because our legislation will be introducing legislation that will assure that women firefighters are going to be given the credit that they deserve to ensure that they are going to be covered for the same types of occupational reproductive cancers that their male counterparts are. And I think that would not have happened if it wasn't for Premier Heather Stephenson. Thank you. We are joined here today by firefighters from Alberta, Ontario. I can tell you that already this morning I have had conversations, press conferences with individuals as far away as from Australia looking at our new legislation. As people know, if you know the history of the presumptive cancer legislation, Australia became the third country in the world to enact presumptive cancer legislation in 2011. And what occurred is they used our legislation word for word as the template for the entire country of Australia. And now Australia is now looking at expanding the cancers in the same way as we have started to do today. So this is something that everybody should be proud of. All Manitobans should be proud of. All firefighters should be proud of, because we are a leader not only in Canada but around the world. And I just want to say I am so proud of our sisters here across the province. We are joined today by female firefighters from almost every major city in Manitoba. These are proud firefighters. Many of these firefighters are officers now within our ranks and are an established part of our family, our sister and brotherhood of firefighting. So again, thank you very much, Madam Premier. And I'm thanking you on behalf of literally dozens of firefighters who are watching this, are looking at this today, who have been diagnosed with these cancers that are going to be passed, that are going to assist them in their provinces almost immediately. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you. Manitoba is very much pleased to work with the Manitoba Firefighter Association to make this important historic announcement here today. The formal portion of this event are now concluded. Will be now open for questions from the media, followed by media questions. The speakers were available for photo op. And just on behalf of Alex, I do want to say for yourself and firefighters, you know, there's a lot of people in the room when tragedy happens and there's a fire in our communities. You know, all of us are kind of running towards the doors, away from the fire. And what fire officials do is they run towards it to protect us. So I just really want to thank yourself and really all the association for protecting Manitobans that you do on an everyday basis. So thank you very much on behalf of Manitoba. And with that, we'll call for any, if there's any questions from the media, and then we'll have an opportunity to have a photo op after. So thank you very much.
All past legislation in Manitoba for occupational cancers have been retroactive. The bill has just been passed. I haven't looked at it specifically, but I have confidence in the government that we're going to move forward on this. I can tell you that we have firefighters here today who are suffering from these cancers. They do not wish to be brought out to the public, but we know who you are here today, and we thank you for being here today. I can tell you that we have numbers across Canada on pancreatic, thyroid, and the women's reproductive cancers. We are not talking in the dozens of firefighters. We are talking well over 100 firefighters in Ontario and Alberta alone are now diagnosed and are fighting with their workers' compensation for cancers such as thyroid, such as pancreatic, ovarian, penile cancers. So these, the fact that this is being introduced, I can tell you that every workers' compensation board across the country is now going to be looking at this, and I will guarantee you that this legislation will go across the country like the original 2002 legislation, that within 2 years we will see the majority of provinces in Canada covering all of their firefighters who are struck down with these horrific diseases. There's volunteer and full-time professional. You're probably looking at between 6,000 to 7,000 firefighters. How long have you been campaigning? I have been doing this for over 25 years. This has been a long road. Manitoba became the first jurisdiction pretty much in the world to recognize the link between occupational cancer and firefighting in 2002. At that time, we looked at 5 cancers. Premier Stephenson was on the all-party committee that assisted us in getting that historic legislation passed. What has occurred then is that every single province in Canada has now passed legislation that has went across the country. Every province has some form of presumptive cancer legislation based on the 2002 Manitoba model. I can tell you that we have been in Australia. I was brought into Australia a number of times, and in 2011 the government of Australia used the template of Manitoba. I can tell you that this is happening in the European Union as we speak, in New Zealand, in Iceland, right across the world. This has been going. This has been a labor of love for not only myself, but this Association of Manitoba. We have worked very hard to get firefighting and occupational cancer acknowledged that this is a true risk. Occupational cancer is the #1 killer of firefighters. It's not traumatic on-duty accidents. It's not one fire that kills us, it's hundreds of fires over our career. And that's why we need this legislation, because it will literally mean the world to individuals who are diagnosed with these deadly cancers. Thank you. The hard thing about women cancers is that whenever you're talking statistical significant studies, we just do not have the studies with the size of women firefighters, because to get a statistical significance, you need to study hundreds of thousands of firefighters. I was involved in the largest study ever in the history of the world out of Australia. They looked at 150,000 firefighters, and they found that all cancers were elevated for female firefighters, but we could not reach the statistical significance because even out of 150,000 firefighters in the country of Australia, there was not sufficient numbers of women firefighters to make a statistical significance. What this represents is we know that women firefighters suffer the same types of cancers, the reproductive cancers that male counterparts do. We know that they suffer the same exposures, so it only makes sense that they should be protected. Thank you. Okay. Right. What this does is it treats a person who's diagnosed, or sadly, if they succumb to that cancer, the same way as if they were in a fire and they die in a house collapse. They will be protected by workers' compensation. I can tell you that the reason that this legislation has been so passionately embraced by firefighters around the world is because many of these firefighters come to me and say that the reason we're doing this is because we need the benefits for our families. If unfortunately, because of our work, we get occupational cancer and we die from that, our children should also be covered under workers' compensation. So what it basically does is it treats the exact same way as if you get hurt on scene of a fire. There is no difference between an occupational injury through a house collapse or an occupational injury through occupational cancer diagnosis.
Do you think this will help attract more women to firefighting?
Do you know what? We are doing everything we can to try and, I believe Winnipeg has been a leader in Canada when we look at recruiting, when we look at bringing women firefighters out to be part of our family. Look at the numbers that we have here. Sadly, it's still not enough. I can tell you that departments right across Canada are working hard to try and make this an important part of a female's career choice. So we are going to schools, we are doing that. But now that they know that they can be protected the same way as male firefighters, I do believe that it will make a difference. And you're going to see the numbers of female firefighters increase over the years. You know what, I can't speak for volunteers, but I can tell you that Winnipeg has approximately 1,000 firefighters. We probably have close, please don't quote me exactly on this, I believe it's around 65 to 70 women firefighters on our department. Why is that? Traditionally, it hasn't been a profession that women have chosen. Just the nature of the job, the physical aspect of it. It is very hard to pass physical tests. It's very hard to pass other aspects of the test, no different than male firefighters. So if you have a smaller pool to hire from, you're going to get fewer people that are successful in becoming firefighters. How many memberships did we sell? A lot. Many memberships. We were very supportive. We make no excuses. We are politically active because if you aren't at the table, you're on the table. And we needed to be politically active. This isn't the first time we've been politically active. We have supported individuals from every political party, whether it's Liberal, NDP, Conservative. We support those who understand the needs of firefighters. And that's why we were active, because Heather had 100% career in supporting firefighters at a level that's very unequaled in Manitoba. That's why we volunteered our times, volunteered everything that we could, abided by every single financial law, and what we did is we ensured that we could help Heather become the premier of this province.
When you say a lot, are you talking
Hundreds,
hundreds?
yes.
That could have been the difference in the race. I mean, do you think it's fair that, I mean, you say you don't,
We're here to talk about cancer.
don't apologize for it, but do you think it's fair that you
Well,
significant voting block for
I have no problem to talking to the media about our political history, our political narratives. This is about firefighters who are suffering from occupational cancers that are now going to be protected because of this legislation. That is why we are here today. And I give you deference and I answered it, but I really don't want to go into the politicalness of this because this is the right thing to do. I will guarantee you that this, just like it has been in every other province, whenever this law comes up, it will be unanimous of all political parties because it's the right thing to do, because it's a small thing to do to assist firefighters. Firefighters never ask anything from society. So when a firefighter gets diagnosed with occupational cancer, I think it's a small thing for the public and the government to be able to say, we understand and we support you, and that's what this government has done for firefighters across Manitoba. Thank you.
Is there any additional questions at all? Nothing? Okay, well, thank you very much, and we'll conclude this ceremony. We're going to have a bit of a photo op, I believe, so we'll have our staff maybe move the MC.